Hey there. So this is going to be the first part of what will be at least a 2 and maybe 3-part tutorial on breaking down some of the elements of Arashi's class of Firedrums on how to spin like Arashi. This first one is going to be kind of an introduction on some of the basic motor skills involved, because I found actually that there was enough stuff to play around with in that I could make an entire video on that alone. Where this starts is this little exercise right here. This is an exercise that I originally learned from a Nick Woolsey video back in my first year of spinning poi. He refers to it as either globing or orbing, I can't remember which one, but the essential idea is that you are taking a globe with the North Pole pointed up, the South Pole pointed down, and your hand essentially at the core, and you're having the poi trace out lines of longitude along that globe as it works its way around your hand. You're subtly deforming the path of the poi as you do so to ensure that it can keep rotating, right? If you look down on it from above, the globe aspect of it becomes a little bit more obvious, which is exactly what we're going to do. We're going to shift around that globe such that the South Pole is pointed back at you and the North Pole is pointed out at your audience. In which case, rather than switching through planes such that at some points we see the full profile of a circle, and at other points we only see the flat line of the plane, we're going to rotate the plane around such that we can only see the flat line of the plane. In which case, we wind up with a globing or orbing pattern that looks more like this. As I'm tracing through this, essentially what I'm trying to do is hit, if I were to divide the circle that I'm working around into 8 points, here, 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 and back to the origin, I'm trying to hit each of those 8 points in sequence with each side of my poise plane, right? Such that it would look kind of like an asterisk. Some of us who have played around with diagonal planes are at least a little bit familiar with this exercise and the usage of these kind of planes. But what's really interesting and different about the way that Arashi approaches an exercise like this is, to him, it is not about reorienting the planes so much as it is aiming the planes. That is, to have the ability, if say I want to go from here to being able to point my plane out that way, I can do that if need be. Or I can point my plane back that way. Likewise, I can do that. And you'll notice that as I'm performing that operation, there's a point down below me where those two plane orientations converge. As the poi crosses through that, it performs an action that's not altogether different from if you were to do a little 2-beat weave with a single poi. You'll note that there's a plane on this side of my body and a plane on this side of my body, and that as I'm switching between the two of them, those planes start wrapping around and converging in front of me, and they converge right at that X point directly in front of me where the poi crosses back and forth between the two, right? Likewise, when I'm performing this plane shift right here, that X point exists as well. It's just straight down, away from me. In fact, if I wanted to, I could switch my orientation such that that X point was in front of me, or I can put it above me, or I could even put it, hang on, coming, there it is. See, that one's rough. I do not have as much experience with, there it is, inverted planes as I would like. But likewise, you're essentially setting up the cross point to come straight back at you instead of away from you. So we have a cross point down. We have our cross point back at ourselves. We have our cross point up. and we have our cross point straight forward, which most of us are already very familiar with. Fun things that you can do with this. Some of you may recall from the Arizona transmission video, Alien Jon doing a move that looked something like this, which is built to that same idea of aiming your planes and coming up with funky cross points in the process, right? In this case, I'm switching from a diagonal to semi-vertical, back to diagonal the other way. And what I'm creating in the process is this cool kind of manifolding shape. Once again, to use and abuse Alien Jon's terminology on it. One of the other things I've been enjoying doing with this is playing around with zigzags. So if I start off with a diagonal kind of buzzsaw right here, I can pop it out into diagonal planes that are oriented opposite of the original diagonal planes. They're still in parallel, but they're apart. And then when I want to, I can shift them back to the original place. So technically speaking, I can switch back and forth in kind of zigzaggy planes. And I unfortunately don't have this down to a 1 beat just yet, but it's coming. Another cool variant on this would be to actually start from a more atomic position like this, which is actually a great exercise to work with, because if you start from this buzzsaw, you can do things like, say, try and orient the plane differently in only one hand at a time. Not like that. But say like that. And then return to the original. And then, say, switch it in the other hand. And then switch it back. Or change them both at the same time and try and return them to the original position, right? So in this case, we're orienting them diagonally away from each other. And what we can do here is, actually, I think I want to start, from here. And when we pop out this time, we create a shape that looks, to me, kind of like a W, as it's rendered in some fonts, where we have a cross right here, we have 2 cross points on the downsides away from each other, and we pop out of it. If you can do that fast enough, it'll look like this kind of W. Yeah. So this is just totally scratching the surface. In the next video, we'll actually talk about some of the cool patterns that you can build using these, but these are basic motor skills that I haven't trained very much, and I was figuring that the majority of you guys who would be watching out there would be in a similar kind of situation. So, thank you for watching, and I will be back within a couple days with some more wonderful techniques for you guys that these concepts lead you to. Thank you guys so much for watching, and peace.